Hello, friends. Welcome to Unacademy. Let's crack NEET PG. I'm Dr. Shonali Chandra, and in today's video, I will be talking about the syndromic approach for the treatment of vaginal discharge. I've highlighted my referral code here, which is SHONALI. So, if you take a subscription package from the Unacademy platform, you can use this code to avail a 10% discount on your subscription package. You can also download the Unacademy Learning app and get notified for upcoming sessions. It'll make your journey easier. On the Plus platform, you'll get daily live classes where you can chat with your educator, interact in doubt clearing sessions, all the while that the class is going on. So it's like a live classroom experience. The courses are structured, keeping in line with the latest NEET PG syllabus. There are also live tests and quizzes on the platform, which will help you evaluate your performance as you go along. And most importantly, one-time subscription gives you an unlimited access, so you can watch all the live sessions from all the faculties who are active on the platform. And even if you miss out on the live sessions, you can always go back and watch the recorded versions from the comfort of your own devices. Top educators are associated with the platform. All subjects that we need to prepare for our post-grad entrance exams, they are covered. And every now and then, comprehensive batch courses as well as short duration crash courses, they keep getting launched. So you can check out the ongoing courses in the platform as well. And now there's a new modular subscription, which is the Iconic subscription, which allows you to access Unacademy and Prep Ladder at the same time. And you can take this Iconic subscription for 12, 18, 24, or 36 months duration. If you subscribe using my code, that is SHONALI, you can avail a 10% discount on your subscription package as well. And talking about the NEET PG subscription package as well, you can choose one depending on your needs and requirements. So if you're targeting the upcoming exams and want a shorter duration crash course, then you can take the 1 month or 3 month duration subscription package. And for example, if you're targeting the next exams, then you can take the 12-month duration subscription. It will give you ample time to go through all of the sessions and will also leave you enough time in the end to revise as well. And it turns out to be more economical also in the longer run. And for those of you who want a slower pace of preparation, like you're in your third year or final year MBBS, and or you're simultaneously working at the same time and you're juggling hospital schedules and clinics and classes and duties all at the same time, then you can take the 24 months duration subscription package. It turns out to be far more economical in the longer run. And if you subscribe using my code, that is SHONALI, you can avail a 10% discount on your subscription package as well. And while you're on the platform, do check out the special free classes that I've already undertaken. Once you subscribe to the platform, you'll get access to the various plus courses. So there's a capsule course on reproductive gynecology, on high-risk pregnancy, on gynae oncology, on labor and its complications, on early pregnancy and its complications as well. So you can check them out on the Plus platform at the same time. Now, coming back to the video topic of discussion, I'm talking about syndromic approach for the treatment of vaginal discharge. Now, the guidelines for this syndromic approach to the management of cases which are coming with vaginal discharge being one of a predominant, OPD level complaint in the gynae OPDs as well. So, the syndromic approach is based on the understanding, and it is given by the National AIDS Control Organization of our country here. Under that aegis, these guidelines are in place for those people who are practicing in peripheral healthcare centers where all diagnostic facilities might not be available at all points in time. So yes, we have a syndromic approach to management, making it easier for healthcare providers to provide care for women who come with the complaint of vaginal discharge. So we're going to talk about this in this particular video. Now, in the last video, I did talk about the various types of infections. I did talk about PID in particular. Well, I'll just elaborate on there again that yes, there are infective agents which infect the ectocervix and the vagina. So you have trichomonas infection, candida, that's your fungal infection, or bacterial vaginosis, which also create vaginal discharge complaints leading to vaginitis. particularly. Now, out of these three infections, you see the trichomonas is actually a sexually transmitted infection. Fungal infections causing vaginitis or vulvovaginitis for that matter, they are usually not a sexually transmitted infection, and they often occur under the background of immunocompromised status or deficient immunity, or maybe sometimes there could be a predisposing factor like, HIV, which is contributing to decreased immunity, or diabetes mellitus, or for that matter, prolonged use of antibiotics. So there can be triggering events which can lead to fungal infections of the vulva and the vagina. And this candidiasis is particularly very important to note here, that it is the commonest type of vaginitis occurring in pregnant women as well, pregnancy being an immunomodulated state to begin with. And that's why the most common type of vaginitis seen in pregnant females is also candida. But yes, worldwide, when you talk about overall, when you talk about worldwide, what is the most common type of vaginitis which is responsible for vaginal discharge complaints, then bacterial vaginosis tops the list there. Now, bacterial vaginosis, on the other hand, is not a sexually transmitted infection. It is plain and simply, an altered microflora of the vagina, where your lactobacilli, which is the good bacilli of the vagina, is replaced by your other gram-negative rods like Gardnerella vaginalis or Ureaplasma or Mobilingus or Prevotella, or for that matter, it could be Peptostreptococci as well. So that alteration in microflora is what is responsible for bacterial vaginosis. And the predisposing factors behind bacterial vaginosis includes like repeated alkalizations of the vagina. It's often, women complain of bacterial vaginosis associated discharges after coitus, and with repeated coitus leading to repeated alkalization of the vagina. Women who practice too much of vaginal douching with alkaline soaps, or for that matter, vaginal discharge douching with alkaline solutions. So that could be one predisposing factor for bacterial vaginosis as well. Now, moving on further, yes, agents like chlamydia and gonorrhea, these are sexually transmitted infections, and they lodge in the endocervix and they cause cervicitis. And whenever these agents, they, ascend upwards into the genital tract, they are capable of causing pelvic inflammatory disease, which is inflammation of the upper genital tract. Now, this would happen with these set of organisms, but trichomonas, candida, and bacterial vaginosis are unlikely to result in PID because they cause predominantly vaginitis and not cervicitis. Now, moving ahead with this information in mind, what do you do when any woman comes to you in the OPD with complaint of vaginal discharge? Now, what you begin with is by taking a proper history. You have to ask the woman what is the character of her discharge. I mean, does it happen all the time? Or does it happen in particular days of the cycle? For example, some women have physiological vaginal discharge, and that's physiological for all women. Around the time of ovulation, the discharge from the vagina is copious and it increases, and it's a watery vaginal discharge, and that's because of the thin cervical mucus that is copious at that time. And that kind of discharge will not be associated with other symptoms like itching or urinary complaints. So that would be a physiological discharge. Some women also have a discharge, just prior to menstruation or immediately after menstruation. And as long as it's not foul smelling, it's not leading to itching, or it's not associated with urinary symptoms, most of the times it's physiological. So noting the character of the discharge is very, very important. I mean, what does she say? Is it clear, or is it white in color? Is it mucopurulent in nature? What are the associated symptoms? Is there vaginal itching? Is there vulvar itching? Are there any urinary symptoms like burning micturition or painful micturition or dysuria? Now, and another important significant factor to note is what is the partner history. I mean, does the partner also suffers from, penile itching or some discharge from the penis? So the partner history is also important to consider at the same time. And once you've done that, yes, the next step is to perform a thorough pelvic per speculum examination examination and a bimanual pelvic examination as well. Now, in the bimanual pelvic examination, again, you're going to note findings such as the size of the uterus, such as, there's any uterine or adnexal tenderness that you can elicit, or is there evidence of any cervical motion tenderness, which will go in favor of the diagnosis of PID. And yes, of course, if your cervix is absolutely healthy on per speculum examination, and there's a discharge which is just localized to the vagina, you would consider vaginitis in the absence of any cervical motion tenderness or cervical motion tenderness, that not being there, and the only finding is a cervix that is healthy and the discharge is localized to the vagina, you consider vaginitis. Or if you find findings like this, where your cervix looks inflamed and red and there's a discharge coming out of the os and the cervix looks unhealthy, there could be a cervical erosion, or the cervix is so unhealthy that it might bleed on touch. But until and unless, yes, as long as your uterine or adnexal or cervical motion tenderness are absent, you consider it as plain and simple cervicitis, or inflammation that is localized to the cervix. And once your uterine adnexal tenderness or cervical motion tenderness are also elicited, then you consider PID as the diagnosis, which we've discussed in the previous video. Now, today the focus is on vaginitis and cervicitis. So once you've done history taking and the per speculum as a bimanual pelvic examination, you can find that the discharge might simply be localized into the vagina, and there's a thin milky white or gray colored discharge which is sticking to the vaginal walls. It is coating the vaginal walls, and the discharge is characteristically fishy in odor. There's no itching, and if you were to check the pH of that discharge, you would find out that the pH is alkaline. The vaginal pH would be alkaline, and you consider bacterial vaginosis as the probable diagnosis. And if you look at the cervix here and you see a very cheesy discharge, or a curdy white discharge, often called as a cottage cheese appearance of the discharge, associated with intense itching so much so that the woman has been itching her vulva and vagina, and probably has led to vulval excoriation, to the extent that whenever she pees, that when the urine falls on that excoriated vulva or nearby vagina, she has that intense painful sensation of burning when she initiates micturition, which is often called as splash dysuria there. And if you were to check the pH of the vagina, well, you would find that the pH is normal. It is acidic in nature. So candida, proliferates in an acidic environment, and you would consider that this is possibly candidiasis. And if you were to find a greenish and frothy discharge with very foul smell and intense itching associated with dysuria, and the pH of the vagina is alkaline, and sometimes when there is so much proliferation of discharge and so much of trichomoniasis infection, there might be a strawberry cervix, petechial red spots on the cervix. So this could also extend into the vagina. This is described as strawberry cervicitis, or strawberry vagina, or strawberry vaginitis. You start thinking in terms of trichomoniasis as the possible diagnosis. Now, what I want to emphasize here is that the pH testing might not be available at all the peripheral healthcare centers. That's why you have to focus on the characteristics of the discharge and the associated symptoms as well, to make you think whether it's bacterial vaginosis, candidiasis, or trichomoniasis. Now, another important thing to note here is that if the facilities are available, yes, you can do a saline microscopy from the discharge. That is what we call as wet smear. So you would take the discharge, put it on a glass slide, and just add a drop of saline over it, cover it with a cover slip, and look it up under the microscope. So you can do that, and you can find certain findings which are suggestive of particular infection, like you can find the presence of clue cells. Now, these clue cells are nothing but vaginal epithelial cells which are studded with the gram-negative rod. So bacterial vaginosis, I told you there's an alteration of the microflora. So these gram-negative rods, which are, piling up on top of the vaginal cells. So the vaginal cells are studded with these, and that's why they appear as fuzzy borders on the wet smear. However, since it's not a sexually transmitted infection and there is no infection or inflammation per se, there will be no WBCs or no leukocytes that you will encounter in that wet smear. So you will make a presumptive diagnosis of bacterial vaginosis there. So clue cells are very, very particular there, which are seen in bacterial vaginosis. You might find, fungal pseudo hyphae, and then you could make the diagnosis of candidiasis. And since there is an inflammation there, so you will be able to see a lot of WBCs in the smear as well. And in the presence of WBCs also, if you happen to find these characteristic flagellated organisms, I mean, you can encounter them in the wet smear findings, these tennis racket shaped structures there with flagellated organisms, which are Trichomonas vaginalis. Now, Trichomonas vaginalis being the causative agent of trichomoniasis, you will make that diagnosis. So your wet smear is a simple enough investigation to help you diagnose either bacterial vaginosis, candidiasis, or trichomoniasis. Now, the important thing to note here is that these fungal elements might not always be appreciated in a wet smear findings, of vaginal discharge. Then in that particular case, just noting that a normal pH under the setting of a characteristic discharge, and other than that, findings suggestive of erythema of the cervix and the vagina, and even though you might not find anything on wet smear, even then you can make a presumptive diagnosis of candidiasis even in that situation. So even if the wet smear is not available, I mean, based on the characteristics of the discharge, as I described in the earlier slide, you definitely can make the diagnosis one way or the other. But yes, sometimes the discharge characteristics can be confusing, and many times, you have to see that. That's why they say that, one can do additional tests if they are available, or one can treat for all the three types of vaginitis together. So there are certain additional tests which can be done depending upon the availability of the reagents and the facilities available at the PHC. I mean, one can do the VIF test. Now, in this VIF test, what we do is we add 10% of KOH to the discharge, and a fishy amine odor can be seen. Now, this VIF test is positive in bacterial vaginosis as well as trichomoniasis. However, it is characteristically going to be negative in a case of a candidiasis, so that would be helpful to find out. And the other thing is culture. Now, culture is not always resorted to in diagnosing vaginal discharge. Well, first of all, there is no culture for bacterial vaginosis. So bacterial vaginosis is mainly a clinical diagnosis aided by the finding of clue cells on the saline microscopy. And yes, of course, gram staining to look for the presence of a number of gram negative rods replacing the gram positive lactobacilli has been described, in which we call as Nugent scoring, where we can see that you can count the number of gram negative rods versus the gram positive rods. So your gram positive rods are the lactobacilli, and you can count the numbers of these rods as well, and then you can get an idea whether it's bacterial vaginosis or not. But this is seldom required in routine clinical practice. Similarly, yes, culture for Candida, fungal cultures are also possible. Culture for trichomoniasis are also possible, but usually not required in clinical circumstances, especially at the PHCs where the facilities will be very limiting. So yes, of course, in the peripheral healthcare centers, if cultures are not available, if VIF test facility is not available, if your basic pH testing might also be not available, your saline microscopy, you need just a microscope to do that test. So you could go ahead and do that. But yes, of course, if you have no such facilities available, simply based on the characteristics of the discharge, the clinical findings, you can go ahead and treat bacteria. You can go ahead and treat vaginitis, and that is the basic concept of the syndromic approach. So treatment for vaginitis will include treatment for all three most of the time. So, and also important to note here is that in about 60% cases of trichomoniasis identified, there will be bacterial vaginosis. And as much as 60% cases of trichomoniasis, there is often coexistent bacterial vaginosis. So it often makes sense to treat both of them together. And the drug, which is the drug of choice for bacterial vaginosis as well as trichomoniasis, is the same. It's metronidazole. So as far as the NACO guidelines are there, as far as the syndromic approach is there, you have a basic one-step treatment for vaginitis, which deals with treating all of the three together. Now it contains tablet secnidazole, which was given in a dose of 2 gram orally single dose. Also contains tablet fluconazole in this kit 2, and 150 milligrams orally single dose of tablet fluconazole is a part of this syndromic approach management in this kit 2. So you can give this two drugs together. Single dose treatment is all that is required. Your secnidazole takes care of your trichomoniasis, also takes care of your bacterial vaginosis, and your fluconazole is the agent that is active against the candidiasis, right? And yes, of course, if you happen to diagnose candidiasis separately, you can simply give fluconazole treatment only. And yes, once you are thinking about trichomoniasis or bacterial vaginosis, you can give tablet secnidazole all by itself, or you can also give tablet metronidazole 500 milligram twice daily, 7-day course can also be given. So there are various regimes of the treatment of vaginitis when you study them separately. But as far as the syndromic management is concerned, which we are discussing, it is keeping in mind that if you're not able to particularly separate the different kinds of vaginitis, I mean, you can give a syndromic treatment for vaginitis together. And when you give this treatment, partner treatment is usually not required for bacterial vaginosis and candidiasis, but partner treatment is definitely recommended for trichomoniasis. And when you give this treatment, it is advised that the patients avoid intercourse for 7 days. And yes, of course, you have to give them condoms accordingly. You have to tell them and you have to teach them that using condoms decreases the risk of sexually transmitted infections. So if you're treating for partner treatment, do give this advice also that they need to avoid intercourse for 7 days. I mean, the course itself lasts for a day, but the sexual intercourse needs to be avoided for 7 days. Now, what about treatment for vaginitis in pregnant women? Now, when you have to treat vaginitis for pregnant women, you see that you have to depend upon the local treatment. Local treatment with clotrimazole vaginal pessary will be good enough for candidiasis, and metronidazole local vaginal pessaries or vaginal creams will be used for trichomoniasis and bacterial vaginosis. Now, in a case of first trimester of pregnancy where organogenesis is taking place, I mean, this would be the preferred, local treatment would be the preferred modality of treatment. And if at all vaginitis is identified in the second or third trimesters, then oral metronidazole can be given. But please remember that fluconazole in pregnant women is contraindicated. Oral fluconazole is contraindicated in pregnant women. So even if you encounter vaginitis in second and third trimester, you can give metronidazole orally, but if you have to add fluconazole, it has to be, if you have to treat candidiasis, you'll have to give clotrimazole vaginal pessaries only. Now, moving on further, what if you identify cervicitis? For example, if you see the findings, if a woman comes with the complaint of vaginal discharge and you encounter mucopurulent cervical discharge and a healthy cervix, a cervix that bleeds on touch, on bimanual examinations, there are no signs of PID. So you suspect that it is infection which is localized to the cervix only, so it's cervicitis. Now in that particular case, yes, if your gram staining facilities are available with you at the peripheral healthcare centers, I mean, you can take a gram stain from the endocervical swab, and then under the gram stain, if you're able to see intracellular diplococci, which are suggestive of course, gonococcal infection, and a lot of WBC signifying infection and inflammation are present there on the gram stain slide and your gram-negative intracellular diplococci identified, you can make a presumptive diagnosis of gonorrhea. And if in case you happen to have a gram stain and you see a lot of WBCs in the stain slide, but no organisms are seen, because see, chlamydia is a very fastidious organism. It does not grow on routine culture media. It does not get picked up on gram stain also. But based on the characteristic clinical features and the fact that you see WBCs on the discharge, I mean, even though you see no organism on gram stain, you can make a presumptive diagnosis of chlamydia. Now, what the syndromic approach tells us is that most of the time, see, chlamydia being the more common situation here, but whenever gonorrhea is there, it's often coexistent with chlamydia. So the syndromic approach tells us that in the case of cervicitis, one should be treating for both together. So the treatment of cervicitis, we give kit number 1, which is supplied by NACO. Now, in this kit, there is ceftriaxone. In the kit particularly, there is oral tablets, cefixime 400 milligrams single dose. I mean, if you have ceftriaxone injection available and your facilities in the peripheral healthcare centers are there, you can give ceftriaxone 250 milligram IM single dose as well. Plus, you will have to give tablet azithromycin 1 gram oral single dose as a part of treatment for cervicitis, as a part of syndromic approach management. So your ceftriaxone or cefixime takes care of your gonorrhea, and your azithromycin, of course, takes care of your chlamydial infection. Now, if a woman can't tolerate azithromycin, then of course the other alternative treatment is capsule doxycycline 100 milligram twice daily for 7 days. But as far as the syndromic management goes, the kit itself contains cefixime tablet and a single dose for tab azithromycin as well. Again, 1-day treatment, simplifying the syndromic management for cervicitis as well. And since both these infective agents are sexually transmitted, so partner treatment is a must when treating for cervicitis. And again, because you have to ask the patient to avoid intercourse for 7 days as well in the meanwhile, and condoms will be provided to the woman, and the use of condoms should be emphasized and educated upon. Now, the other important aspect is finally the treatment of cervicitis in pregnant women. So if a pregnant woman has cervicitis, you see the treatment is the same. The same treatment is safe and effective. However, yes, of course, in place of azithromycin, one can use tablet erythromycin 500 milligram QID for 7 days, or one can use capsule amoxicillin also, again orally 500 milligram 3 times a day for 7 days. However, yes, the same treatment is safe and effective. That is cefixime as well as your azithromycin. Now, the one thing that is important to note here in treating pregnant women is that quinolones, ciprofloxacin, ufloxacin. So these quinolones and doxycyclines, they're absolutely contraindicated in pregnant female. So this is the syndromic approach to the management of vaginal discharge patients, which is simplifying the treatment of vaginal discharge in peripheral healthcare centers, where all the tests and all the necessary tests which help you differentiate for sure between different kinds of cervicitis and vaginitis. I mean, nucleic acid amplification tests might not be available to differentiate between chlamydia and gonorrhea, or gram staining facilities may not be available most of the times. Wet smear facility requires just a microscope, so that should be available in most of the peripheral healthcare centers. But if not, yes, of course, based on the clinical features, based on the per speculum and the per vaginal findings, one can treat vaginal discharge. Now, vaginal discharge could be plain and simple vaginitis, then one would give the kit treatment for vaginitis, covering all the 3 agents. And if one is diagnosing cervicitis, then one needs to give the treatment for cervicitis, the kit number 1, which I mentioned earlier. And if you cannot differentiate between a vaginitis versus a cervicitis, then the recommendation as far as the syndromic approach is that treat for all. So that is what the syndromic approach is all about. Again, I would emphasize that this syndromic approach is utilized where your healthcare facilities are limited, where you're not able to perform all the tests in a woman. There is still some way where you can simplify the management and treatment of vaginitis or vaginal discharge or cervicitis in these women. So thank you so much for watching this video, and feel free to join me on the platform for the special classes that are conducted there. You can enroll for the plus courses and get access to the various capsule courses that are already on the platform. So thank you so much, friends, for listening to this video. Have a great day and take care.